You're welcome.
Right. Okay, well, I'm glad we could get together today, Travis, to talk about our favorite topic. So my name is Kim Champney. I'm a consultant with Champney Consulting, working in Alaska with the developmental disability system. And I'm here today with my friend Travis.
Hello everyone, my name is Travis Noah. I am a peer advocate for an agency here in Alaska called Hope Community Resources, but even my supervisors will tell you I do statewide advocacy as well, not just for one agency but for the entire state.
Yeah, and Travis and I are here today to talk about what a person-directed life looks like and what it does not look like. And this is part of a project that we're both involved in. A couple of years ago, the state of Alaska came together, people around the state came together and created a shared vision for the future. What would the ideal service system look like for people with disabilities? And what came out of that was a vision that everyone is really passionate about, and a big piece of that is that people with disabilities will be more in control of the support that they receive and more in control of their life. And so one of the things that Travis and I have worked together on is with a team looking at how do you create a culture change to make our system and our communities more person-directed. And one of the big accomplishments of that group was coming up with a definition of person-directed, which is, I live the life I choose with the support I direct. But we all realize that is a pretty global statement, and sharing stories and giving examples may be a good way of really helping people understand what that looks like. And so that's what Travis and I are here today to do a little bit of. Do you want to add anything to that introduction?
Yeah, keep in mind throughout the rest of this video, this system that we're talking about isn't just the system itself, it's a way of thinking under the DD Collaborative. I say the way of thinking because everybody that has seen this, that has not been a part of this process, that lives within the Alaska system at least, has run into, oh, well, this means the state of Alaska has a blank check. It's kind of the way people are thinking, and we can ask for whatever we want. The reality is that's not the case. But if you think about how you want your life to be, that is what this is about. How to design your life or your family member's life. And I say that because we include families under this whole vision. It's not just for people who are their own guardians either. It's for people who have service needs or family members who have service needs. A way of living your life, the way that you want to see it structured, and how best to adapt when funding sources change.
Yeah. Well, Travis, why don't we start by you sharing a little bit about your early life experiences?
In my early life, I've lived a unique life compared to most people with physical disabilities. I'm going to be honest right now. Most people wouldn't have had the life that I've had. When I was very little, I moved around a lot. My father was in the military for quite a long time. During my early years, we moved to different states, Texas, Georgia, Oklahoma. We were all over the place. And I saw a lot of states do things a certain way. And when we asked for services and assistance to provide my care in those states, at the time, keep in mind, I'm 34 years old, which means I was born in the early 80s. The Americans with Disabilities Act was not passed till 1990. So during a lot of those early years, getting assistance even after the ADA laws were passed didn't happen because the states looked at you and said, you're in the military, by the time we get everything set up, you're going to be moving. Fast forward 18 years to where I move out. It was kind of the same thing in the beginning, but not because of the same reasons either. I didn't really know how to be an effective advocate like I am now, even in my professional life. Forget personal for a minute. I was put into situations where at the time I learned a lot. Let me be clear. I learned quite a bit with where I was at. But was it ideal with my life? No. But it taught me a lot about how I really want my life to be. Even before the DD vision was a thought in anybody's head of how to think of life being that way.
Well, Travis, can you share an example of a time in your life when you were living the life that you did not choose?
Oh yeah. The easiest one that I can think of was I got to choose the first place I lived at. But what happened, and it's still to this day in a lot of our system, when you live in a group home, you don't really get to choose under that who your roommates are going to be. You get to choose where you live, but you don't get to choose who you live with. There's no option around it because it depends on level of need because of the type of model that a lot of people in the state want us to still live by, which is the medical model. During that time frame, I lived in a group home with all people in wheelchairs, which, trust me, in a lot of ways was awesome because we all understood each other because we all had physical issues. But in some others was not so great because they had more limitations in some ways than I did, which caused me to have problems. And I eventually was asked, but at the same time that I was asked to move, I also wanted to move because I realized this wasn't the kind of life I wanted to live. However, when I was asked to move the first time, I wasn't given really many options on where to go. They gave me one option that they thought would be ideal. I moved, and the term, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, applies to this. There were a lot of things that were positive, but there were a lot more that were like, gee, I might have been better off if I had been able to stay where I was and just dealt with the issues. But again, I don't regret any of that because it helped me learn what I wanted and how I wanted to live. Because nobody really thought I could live on my own in the beginning.
So now I've heard you talk about how you really feel like you are living a person-directed life. Can you share what that looks like?
Person-directed life sounds hard. It really does to a lot of people. I know that for a fact, but it's not. Person-directed life, whether it's family members or the individual themselves being their own guardian, just means directing your care the way that you want, whether it's through services that is provided by an agency and paid for by the state or the federal government, or in my case, a mixture of that and sometimes some personal supports, whether it be local personal support or in my case, family support, because they live in a different city in the state of Alaska than I do. But they still are a part of my life and they still support me if I need something.
So where do you live now? Are you living in a group home at this time?
Technically, it's considered a group home. If you were to look up how it's funded and licensed, yes, it's considered a group home. But it's not ran that way. I have my own apartment with specialized assistive technology that allows me to live fairly independently. And I have, my own place. I can live my own life. I have a dog, which at the agency at the time that I lived with before, I wasn't able to have a pet. I wasn't able to have an animal to provide me some companionship. And I get to do pretty much what I want to do within reason. There are still limitations, but I'm still able to do what I want to do without too much interference or somebody telling me it can't be done. And if they tell me it can't be done, they usually say it can't be done that way, because they've gotten to know me and they know when I ask for something, there is a reason that I'm asking for it.
Travis, do you have advice for people with disabilities who would like to be more in control of their life?
Yeah. Biggest advice is don't look at life as it always requires funding. Find friends, find family, find community people that you can get to know, that once they get to know you, might be willing to help. And that goes for families too. Because in the world of the parents being the guardian, or state, whichever the case may be, but I really believe in families support. Families can find other outlets for the individual that they provide care for to get support that isn't paid for. Because let's be realistic, the state is going to change its funding sources on a regular basis. That's going to happen. And you're going to have to adapt. Don't just say, oh, I got to give this up and there's no way to live my life. You're going to have to maybe change your life a little, and there may be some give and take. There may be some things that you have to give up. But figure out what you can't live without, what you could possibly adjust. And then if there are things that you can't find a way to live the way you want, then make that decision.
Okay. I'm wondering if you have any advice or requests of service providers who are supporting people. Keep in mind.
Yeah. To some, people that go in to receive supports, don't let individuals, and I say individuals, not agencies, because not everybody in an agency is going to think this way, but don't let somebody say, well, if it's not in the plan of care, there's no way to do this. There's no way to accommodate a need. Make sure that they're willing to work with you on providing you services, whether it be through them or help you find other avenues that are not funded. Because where the crack is in the system is people think if the state doesn't pay for this, there's no way that a person can live their life. I got news for you. There's a lot of things I do that the state pays for, but I also have my own methods of socialization, of keeping friends and family in my life. I help out where it's needed. I have people that call me throughout the state, just asking how do you do what you do?
Would you say that really being person-directed is a mindset?
Oh, yes.
More of like a service or a system?
It is absolutely 100% mindset. If you go into this thinking, I can figure out how to make this work, whether it be through someone like myself, who the job is an advocate, for somebody to sit down and help you figure out, you're telling me this is what you want, how can I help you get to that point? Or if the family members are capable of doing it themselves, you have to find ways to live the life that you want that doesn't always involve an agency 100% or the state. Because trust me, you're never going to be, if you go into this thinking the state has to provide the care, you're never going to get everything you want. Because I don't care what state you live in, there's not a bottomless pit, an endless amount of money. It just doesn't exist. It's going to constantly change. The states are going to have restraints. So don't think of this as it has to be done by the state or the federal government. Think of it as you live your life, but you can direct what funds they give you and how it's presented, and then the rest of it, you either adapt it to how you want, or you decide what can you live without. What would have been nice, but okay, now that funding resources have changed, can I give this up and still live pretty much the life I want to live?
Yeah, I think one of the valuable things that is happening through the DD Vision is recognizing our communities need to change, and really I think people in the community are open to being supportive and inclusive, but don't necessarily know how to do that, or even that there's a need or an interest for that.
Right.
And so I think that's a key part of expanding the world beyond the plan of care, like you're saying, that a person-directed life isn't just the paid services, but it's the other pieces of an individual's
Right.
life as well.
And something I just want to add as a little small caveat here. When this whole statement was put out of living the life I choose with the supports I direct, a key component that was heavily discussed by the leadership team when we were designing this was we have to include families, because that is a big component that every state, I think, up until now, has unintentionally missed, is that families are one of the biggest key components. And yeah, so people say, it sounds like your family is heavily inclusive in your life, Travis. Truth is, they are. Some other families, though, can't be. And that's not because they don't want to be, it's because of a variety of different reasons. And that's fine. But I'm telling you, from my own experience, professionally as well as personally, be involved to whatever extent you can. And if you can't, okay, that's all well and good. But trust me when I say a person-directed life, for the individuals that have trouble speaking, it's going to come down to two things. The families that know these people and the direct care support staff that provide the day in and day out support. And don't be afraid to say, this doesn't work to the agency, especially for DSPs or the guardians of these individuals. Can we change this? And even if they say, we can't provide support under the waiver system or whatever you're on, ask them, do you know of a non-waiver way that we could do this? Or don't be afraid to look at whatever state you live in and seek out someone like Kim or myself. Because if they don't know, it's our job to know those kinds of things. And we do help people with stuff like that. Those kinds of things are absolutely key in this business of directing your own supports. And believe me, it becomes more worthwhile when you direct it the way that you want, and you don't look at this as, that means I have to have a ton of money. Reality is you don't. I'm on a waiver, and I get a bunch of services through it, but not everything I do that brings me joy and gives me this person-directed life is entirely waiver-based. My job isn't. What I do for a living is not. That came about because I chose to find something.
Yeah.
Just as a prime example.
Right, and
So,
I know you're a resource for people who want to talk more about this and learn more about it, and I am as well, and I think that we'll be bringing you more stories of person-directed lives as we move through this journey.
definitely, and to anyone that sees this video, and I mean anyone, whether it be state, federal, whatever, if you look at this and you have questions about more how it's centered around my life, or it could be centered around someone else's life, that you know, but you're not sure if this fits in your area, even if it's another state. Kim and I do this for a living. This is stuff that we both are passionate about, and either one of us can be contacted.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Mhm.